The scene is set in the Odyssey Theatre. Within one of the hidden screens is the casino, exclusive to Kindred. Past the card tables and the glitzy bar, in a quiet corner booth sits John Stanhope. A bottle of VTMYTE unopened and 2 glasses waiting. He's a little trepidatious about this meeting. Crowley is, at least to John's mind, an unknown, despite the various praise given to him by his paramour Calliope. He distrusts the man. He seems far too astute. And so John waits to see what this Mr. Crowley is all about.
Jacob enters the casino after passing through to the other side of the false screens. He takes a long moment to look around the establishment, not just to take in his surroundings, but admire and critique the design work and atmosphere of the building. When he's seemingly had his fill of it, he will step towards the center and begin looking for John Stanhope.
Mr. Crowley is met by an aged ghoul, bald of palate and a rather sombre look to him. His clothes are well tailored but drab, and with a sardonic tone. Mr. Crowley?
That would be I.
Mr. Stanhope awaits your pleasure upon his normal booth.
'Tis my first time here. Would you care to direct me?
Man's sighs, like that of a practiced serving staff, that he has to do more work than is truly necessary. This way, sir. And he leads to the quietest corner around some red leather booths. And you see John, who doesn't get up but smiles warmly and offers a seat.
Jacob gives a dismissive sounding thank you to the steward before dropping down into the seat in the sort of fashion one might expect from a cat, slouched, lounging almost immediately, and relaxedly taking Stanhope in from the other hand.
Mr. Crowley, a pleasure. Can I offer you some refreshment?
Normally I would say yes, but I actually just drank. Wouldn't want to overdo it.
There is no insult given. And John takes the bottle and opens it and pours himself a glass. In fairness, I am beginning to get a little tired of my old stock. I should really spend more time in the lab.
Think of expanding a bit.
You notice that John has 2 glasses next to him, one in which he sips from and another in which he spits into. Perhaps the blood business is a steady one, but with the closing of most Elysiums and the general attitude of the city, business does not go well. Hopefully that will change.
What is a Camarilla city without its Elysiums? There will be some more soon. There are actually quite a few still intact. Everyone just wants to clear out the rabble-rousers first.
Yes, there's a sense of oppression in the air. Kindred afraid to come out of their hidey holes, and good reason for it, I suppose. But what of your Mr. Crowley, I have to say that I am a little ignorant of your own dealings within the city.
I fear they have not changed much from when Calliope was present. I still own the one-eyed dog bookstore over in downtown. I still perform my usual services of oddity acquisition for those with more refined or exotic tastes.
Should we be expecting a auction house, perhaps, or event soon? I do enjoy those.
That's something I've considered for some time, but I'm not sure if I have ever tried to garner enough stock at once to perform one. Most times I usually bring it in as it's requested and such.
I see. And what sort of oddities do you stock, Mr. Crowley?
Well, you remember, oh, you know, our seneschal acting prince, Iris Breckenridge.
Indeed.
You know of her reading preferences, perchance?
Alas, it is considered very bad taste for a venture to inquire over such things. Although many of my clan do trust me with such adhered knowledge due to my chosen profession, which I take with great honor.
Really? I have to say that's something I did not know. That you all do not intrigue each other with tales of your possessions. At least not even for public conversation.
Such showboating is seen as rather gauche, Mr. Crowley. It is simply enough to possess something, not to flaunt it around.
Fair enough. Fair enough indeed. Oh. Then I suppose I'll leave it at saying that there were quite a few books that she found interest in, and she desired them in their first edition form. Some were several hundred years old.
A fine hobby. Academia. I myself have quite a love for books, although perhaps not needing it to be the first edition. Really, the contents of the page and the knowledge trapped within is art enough for myself.
I believe it had something to do with a nostalgic feeling. Nevertheless, it was useful.
I suppose there's a trouble with some of our elders, and they can never see forward, they can only see back, never adapting to the new age. I wish I had time to look back at books written in my era, but alas, I have to keep up with the constant thriving of the medical journals and the new advances in technology. It's tiresome.
Jacob breaks into a sudden bout of chuckling. Forgive me. You brought a amusing memory to mind. Elders who are still practicing the art of the current day. Computers and such.
The mortals seem to be jumping leaps and strides, clearly outpacing our kind. We keep up or we become redundant, Mr. Crowley. That does seem to be the way of things in this new millennium.
That seems to make us not very much unlike humans themselves. In a way, it ties us rather tightly to the kind's environment, doesn't it?
Well, we have always been tied to the kite. It is our place to shepherd them, as we have the age and experience and the power to guide them in the right direction. A Camarilla city that has no control of its mortals really has no control, wouldn't you agree?
I would. Just why I am surprised how quickly some things manage to get out of hand in Camarilla cities.
Do you have an example?
There was a person, a Toreador I met some time ago. They said they came from, oh, what was it? Was it Los Angeles or Chicago? The city in particular fails me now, but I recall their conversation because they spoke of how quickly a few words managed to bring in a troop of hunters and facilitate a need for quick elimination and in some cases even quicker withdrawal.
Careless words cost lives.
Yes, and in the Kind's new world, careless words are very easy to make.
Very true. But we of Kindred already have been bred for this sort of subterfuge, I suppose. The wrong word in court, or speaking to the wrong person, or within the earshot of a person, can ruin one's chances of attaining a title, for instance.
A title. I suppose you do have a point in that. The worst thing about titles provided through the words of others is it forces you to have to be so very careful with your own words.
I hope they don't find it a great trouble, Curmudgeon Crowley. You do not seem to be someone who speaks carelessly.
I try not to. Usually, when a Toreador makes a habit of speaking carelessly, they make a habit of not having much in their hands by the end of the decade.
Very true. I might have a few antiquities tucked away for you, Mr. Crowley, if you wouldn't. I wonder if there's a buyer for them. I'll tell you one of the tricks I got from the old days in New Serum. I have a vial of Quaijin blood. Useless for my experimentation. It found it tastes rather bitter, like mud or wood. I hoped it would oak the VTMYTE in my labs, but alas, it seems uncompatible. But as a collector's piece and something of a memento, it serves quite well.
Next, you'll be telling me you have a droplet from that Setite imposter from back then.
Before my time, I'm afraid. I was still under Lady Clarity Orchid's stewardship as ward. I was not allowed out of the city.
Ah, I understand. Sounds that she took decent care of you, as far as kindred care goes.
Well, it was certainly more than I expected after my departure from England. I had a lot of freedom back in the day, and then, well, let's just say my sire thought that I needed some re-education in the ways of the kindred, and America seemed a perfect opportunity.
We are a tad bit different from our fellows across the seas and further down south, aren't we?
There you have hit the nail on the head, Mr. Crowley. It has been a difficult transition. My word, If you mention things like uh, anarchs and democracy and Primogen voting prince in the old country, they would scoff. Just the same as, I don't know, elders running bookshops.
In that case, I have to find that they are rather, I don't mean to say short-sighted, but are lacking in an obvious advantageous position. Bookstores, while they may not be the best source of willing vessels, are a wonderful method by which you can reach a multitude of individuals. The young, the old, the influenced, the ignorant, all of them eventually come for books.
There is much in the old world that does not adapt within this new land. These Americas do breed opportunity and advancement in our own sect. As I discussed previously, we must adapt and evolve like the kine. And it has become rather clear that the old ways of the European kindred don't seem to work here.
It's interesting you say that. Would you ever consider taking what you learned from the Americas back to English soil?
I have thought about it. Go back to the homeland and visit, but it will not go down well there. Everyone's far too set in their ways. We think we have troubles here in New Serum or the Americas with elders not wanting to budge on a particular point of view. Think when they're not just centuries old, but almost thousands of years old. I don't think it would fly.
Ah, yes, I forget. The English lands are those where the only creatures that aren't Methuselah are actually walking about amongst us still, fresh in the lands that have been fermenting for, well, since almost near the days of that writing of that wonderful book, the Bible. It's strange when I think of them sometimes.
I'm sure they're slapping their foreheads rather mightily that they didn't get into the editing process of that particular book.
Oh yes, if only if they'd made giving blood a matter of divinity,
Well, perhaps not the Protestant ideals, but I have read that back in the Golden Age, the War of Princes, that the consecration in Roman Catholic and Orthodox was subverted via some heretical sects or another.
Fascinating. How long did that last?
100 or so years before the Inquisition. They got a little bit too brash.
Ah.
Oh, Mr. Crowley. Oh, that does remind me. I had a request and a call from a couple of your young ones the other night.
Oh, you don't say.
Mr. Salisbury and his child, Mr. Cole.
The new one, yes. What did the two have to say to you?
Oh, they haven't seen you yet. Well, I told them to come and see you immediately. This was a matter for you to hear first off as their Primogen, but as I explain the situation, I'm sure you can understand why they called me. It seems that there was a little snafu outside of the Black Orchid, whereas the two, as well as a couple of other kindred, accidentally broke the masquerade in the fact that they got shot by police officers and kept walking. And then disposed of said police officers.
They forgot to die? Really?
Yes.
And I suppose you're going to tell me that the Orchid has cameras out front.
It is not my domain. It is Lady Iris's, given to her by her lady mother. But it is a nightclub. Nightclub with security. And after we had a truck run through it, thanks to the old Malkavian Primogen, security has been increased.
So whatever did they have to call you for? Or which matter, I should say.
They wish for it to be cleaned up from the mortal eyes to make sure that it is passed off as some gang violence.
Hmm. That's easy enough.
Precisely. And I am always a friend to the Toreador, and we were all young once, I suppose. Maybe not that foolhardy, but certainly I'm sure we all have had mistakes in the past. However, it does raise a political problem in the fact that they broke the masquerade on Miss Breckenridge's domain. Therefore, it is truly up to her what we actually do with the offenders.
This is true. She holds the right of domain over top of Primogen, as they are not a position in the traditions. So, while I can punish them for the matter in her stead, it's up to her to decide if that is acceptable or not.
Well, it depends on how useful you find them, I suppose.
Well, I don't think she would dispose of them. One of them is a harpy. He has made himself useful in his time in the city so far. The other, his child, horrifically new to the city, and to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if you told me he was the one who was shot.
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure, but we can certainly squeeze them for the other miscreants. The cameras will show up in due time. I'm sure it'll be quite amusing to see the ineptitude of neonates nowadays.
Yes. Once they purge that out, we should keep a copy of it around, sitting on a desk somewhere. Masquerade 101. This is what you don't do.
I thought it was only proper to bring it to your attention.
I do appreciate it. I'll speak with them.
Now I must apologize, for I must get on to the dull part of the conversation, which is the politics of the evening.
Do go on.
I don't mean to be crass, but it does appear in the meeting that you and Miss Breckenridge have a history.
You could say it. Ah, that's right. It's been some time since you were in the city, and Calliope has not been here either to regale you with tales. I met the lady Breckenridge in that first attempt to form a war council back. Oh, I believe he was regent of the Tremere at the time. Second regent I've ever met, actually. We were holding something of a military council of the Primogen and such. That was when I first encountered the Lady Seneschal, and, well, as I said earlier, I found out she had a love for old books, and it just happens to be something I can easily acquire. I'm sure you can do the math from there.
Exactly. Seemed to fit like a glove, as it were, a perfect opportunity. But I don't think you are a foolish man, Mr. Crowley. I think you know when a horse is worth betting on and when it is time to cash in.
Especially when it seems to have developed a limp leg.
As much as I have a fondness and respect for Lady Breckenridge, I believe that the mantle of her legacy is too much to bear. And the poor girl needs to enjoy her own life rather than take on more responsibility. If she truly needs to change the city for the better, wouldn't she have done this by now? She's been in power for since I had my little vacation from the city, and yet it doesn't seem to have gone better. If anything, it's gone worse.
I would like to point out the variety of ways in which she could have improved things. Unfortunately, the Seneschal's position is, well, decent, but not limitless. And her sentimentality over her brother, while I applaud her care for fellow blood, well, you saw the meeting. It blinds her in ways that are quite disconcerting.
Precisely. Which is why I cannot put my faith in Mr. Eudocia. He is an elder and a very wise kindred. Certainly very popular with the young ones, and a very amicable man. We've had amicable princes, and with a soft-hearted, sentimental seneschal and an amicable prince, do you think any of these problems are really going to go away?
How soft-hearted do you think Mr. Eudocia is? My dealings with him are not quite as plentiful as they could be.
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. Back when I first was released into the city, I had a clanmate called Edmund Flagg. He was competing for a bit of the docks at that point in which Mr. Eudocia had taken, and Mr. Flagg blackmailed Mr. Eudocia and played him at a very dangerous game. Mr. Eudocia gave up most of the control of the docks, and Mr. Flagg is still in the city, walking around. So yes, I do not think that Mr. Eudocia has the iron heart needed to rule this city.
Let's see. I'm going to have to roll to see if Jacob can keep a straight face through that.
I'm going to roll my empathy and perception, because I'm pretty good at this, actually.
Go ahead.
Oh. There we go. 6 dice with a specialty. I won't flash all specs, because I don't want it on all the time. 1, 2, 3. What did you get?
3.
3. Defender always wins.
Yep.
Right.
Jacob sighs and shakes his head, rubbing his forehead a moment. I'm astounded that I never actually heard of that. Well then, actually, no, I'm not astounded. It would be rather damaging to Mr. Eudocia's reputation, wouldn't it?
Quite. Mr. Crowley, you can see from that council meeting, which with a few poignant questions, both candidates flubbed and gasped and reached for straws. None of them have a true direction for this city, or haven't really thought about it more than an afternoon. I and my confederates, and yes, I have a few, have a plan. This vote is going to go not as the candidates hope, but if I want this plan to work, Mr. Crowley, it's going to need the Toreador, for it focuses on where the kindred should have power, over the mortals. Our influence is directly linked to our power and our hold on the city, which has been left to rack and ruin over this constant infighting and chasing our tails after the spot. You know as well as I do that the Toreador and the Ventrue are second to none when it comes to controlling the mortals.
I'm well aware of our abilities in politicking and socializing amongst the masses, yes. This plan that you speak of, I imagine obviously would have something to do with that no confidence vote you brought up at the council meeting. So all that really is left to be asked is your plan to induct another candidate, or is your plan to completely rout the election itself?
If I was in a very petulant mood and had no actual idea, I would simply... It would be amusing to cause chaos, to see the mettle of the candidates, but no. My goals, Mr. Crowley, is so I can live in a city I can be proud of, in a city where I can gather a moderate piece of influence and live out my life quietly. I want a city in which I do not have to worry about Sabbat raiding the streets, or anarchs or neonates killing members of higher status. I want somewhere in which Calliope will be safe. This city is not that place. Another candidate will be put forward, another candidate backed by the Confederates who all believe this plan will bring us back to the Golden Age. With no confidence vote, he will be unopposed. Therefore, we can unite the Camarilla in a unified vote. But who that prince is will have to be someone personable, someone sharp. Obviously, Mr. Brody Innes would like to put his name forward, but we all know that no one trusts the Tremere. I myself have been too politically aggressive and have garnered enemies, so it cannot be myself. Perhaps there is room for another if they wish to join our merry band.
It sounds like a very doable plan. There is more than enough dissension and certainly enough questions that I know many would not want to rush into voting either into the position without more direct queries upon either, especially not with this Apollo running amok. However, you're quite right. There has to be some leadership or another. What would you have of the Toreador in this great scheme of yours? What do you need to secure the city?
My plan is thus. Each Primogen will be responsible for a particular influence within the mortal stratus. That Primogen will then sponsor a coterie which will help him expand this influence. The coterie will be of mixed clan, no more than a single member of the Primogen's own clan to be allowed. The prince, in turn, will not hold influence himself, but have a modicum to help to keep his interest going, but collect taxes every month, say, from the Primogen. The prince will be reliant on the Primogen, and the Primogen on the prince. I would have brought my dossier here, but unfortunately it's elsewhere. This plan promotes our most unifying factor, our factor of competing. The Camarilla and kindred in general always wish to compete over their rivals. While the coteries are competing with rival coteries, the mixed blood kindred within their own coteries, the Primogen friendly jostling against each other and the ancilla also means that no longer will we have this tirade of neonate uprisings and having the court threatened. It'll create stability. The Toreador will be needed, in fairness, to have their pick of which influence they wish to garner, from the arts and high society to the media, or perhaps even the print, the police, whichever you feel is the best way they can serve the city.
It's a very thorough and quite intuitive suggestion. I dare say the only reason someone hasn't thought of it earlier is no one would consider having coteries put together with older kindred. It seems most of them collapse by that point due to their inability to remain social amongst each other without a Toreador ball or a Venture Elysium every week to keep them coming to the same place. I can't say I mind the idea. In fact, it has merit. The media may even sorry about that. I think I will take that drink, actually, if it's not too late.
John pours it. Very professionally, you can see that he's probably had practice of this in his life. Recorks it. This one is an old favourite of mine. It's called Firebrand. It is a spicy concoction of Mediterranean spices brought with Latino blood and a flair of an aftertaste which indicates a political saboteur who was, let's just say, a little zealotous in his beliefs.
Jacob is going to take the glass in his hand. He's going to lift it. And as he does, he is going to activate heightened senses. He's going to focus his senses on his taste buds and see if he can identify the menagerie of flavors rolling down his palate. What would I roll for that? Just perception,
Perception alertness.
alertness. Okay. Let me make sure that that is the 2 and not the 1. We have, yes, 2 in alertness, 1 in awareness. And our roll is thus. Three successes.
With 3 successes, you can tell that, as John says, the emotions of the man are vibrant passion, with a hint of remorse and pain. He is a young man, Latino blood, physically fit, but has the oncomings of a heart condition. With your heightened senses of Auspex, you can tell that the VTMYTE is flavoured ever so slightly with a anticoagulant.
He'll close his eyes, lick his lips, and after another sip, put down the glass. enriching and a bit tantalizing.
That is high praise from a toreador.
Your line has something of a reputation here. I'm glad to see that it has not floundered any.
We all must have our hobbies, Mr. Crowley.
Yes, yes we do. I find this plan of yours amenable to me. I believe with the current creatures rolling about in my care, the media may be just a tad bit more accessible than the higher forms of society.
Precisely. And it does allow for permission to hold a monopoly while doing only a fraction of the work. For the good of the city.
Naturally. A coterie. That's going to be quite a concoction. The last coterie I heard about was a quartet, or was it a quintet? Of neonates in the city.
Really? Make any astounding strides in politics or the sect?
Not politics, no. I don't think they were overly concerned in that. A lot of our neonates, the young, coming from this fresh democratic world, the civil rights and women's rights movements of the past centuries, very few of them, well, seem to have the same lust for political awareness and change, as in their eyes it seems most of the change has happened already, for the better. What a culture shock it is for some of them.
We all learn, eventually.
I think this plan of yours has merit, though. And if I have opportunity to assist in it, I see no reason not to.
Excellent. He lifts his glass to a new and bright future.
Quite so. Now, to spice the evening up with slightly less dreary conversation, how is Calliope?
She is doing remarkably well. A little agitated that I've now taken the Primogen seat. She believes it to be cursed. But she amuses herself. Her chorus is getting there. None can obviously hold a candle to her own musical talent. I think she has too high a standard for the poor mortals. But the Looking Glass Cabaret is expanding nicely upon the waterfront, and she has a couple of interesting business proposals over the next few months that should expand the club's popularity.
Then all is maintained as she wished. Most excellent. I may have talent inquiries to make of her in some of the coming weeks.
I will make her aware that you wish to speak with her. It's been far too long for her as well since being in the public eye. I'm sure she will relish the chance.
Of that I have no doubt. Let her know that the Primogen seat hasn't killed me just yet.
Hopefully, those dark days are behind us. Now we have reasonably competent people in the seats.
I hope so. I truly hope so. We still need to do something about the Nosferatu. They're too silent.
It is worrying. Perhaps once the Sabbat are all gone, they'll come scurrying back. I've started to make inquiries with some of my old contacts. Raznox has never been this quiet before. And I know Eleanor is still running around the city. I will try and trace up as many as I can. At least tell us why they have disappeared.
Yes, it's been a while since I've heard from Joshua Deep directly. I don't suppose you have word of if he's in the city. Do I need to hunt him down at Perranporth?
He is in the city. He made a brief visit in this very casino not a few nights ago.
Aha. Good. I want to catch up with him. It's been a time since I've spoken with him and Cole. Good people, those two.
Yes. I believe that Mr. Deep is a very wise individual and a blessing onto our city, and Cole is a refreshing breath of air.
Indeed. I do not wish to take up too much more of your time, and I thank you for spending this much with me, Mr. Stanhope.
It was my pleasure, Mr. Crowley. It is always satisfying to see someone else who appreciates the finer things in both art, vitae, and politics.
You flatter me. As he speaks, Jacob will rise up from the table. He doesn't need leading out, as he did inwards, and with a nod and cross of arm over chest to stands up, he'll turn about and make his way from the casino into the theater on the outside and into the streets beyond.
John will, after the Primogen has gone, hunch over the table, replaying with his eidetic memory the entire scene, every movement, every word that Mr. Crowley has said. What is his motivation? Is he truly on board, or is he simply playing the game? If he has any sense, he will see the merit in my words. Well, to be safe, I should secure the vote. And John calls over his manservant, Geoffrey. Dig up the old Harpy ledger. I need to find some Nosferatu. And the scene ends.